Hi, I'm Joss, and this isn't a talk about actually becoming a better developer. This is only a talk about feeling like a better developer. So I don't know, I was just going to tell everyone to use Vim. So we've got about 19 minutes for questions. No, this is a talk about feeling like a better developer. And my hope is that in 20 minutes, some of you will feel like better developers and feel happier and more confident for it. So these two things, feeling better and actually being better, you would like to hope that there's this sort of nice, linear, kind of X equals Y relationship between the two, right? As I've illustrated in this sophisticated data visualization here, you'd like to think that, as you sort of like become a better developer, you feel like a bloody better developer, right? But us poor mortal humans are subject to all kinds of cognitive biases which make us terrible at evaluating pretty much everything, but particularly stuff involving ourselves. Appealing to data and evidence rather than emotion can help, but in a bit of a catch-22, we're also great at convincing ourselves that we're the exception to the rule. I am undoubtedly the single outlier in this huge set of data. We're great at that. So we're bad at judging our ability, and you'll have people all over the place on this chart. I think the IE6 core team was stuck somewhere up here. And then you've got your new Vim user. And then there's the path I took, which I think is actually relatively common. So you start down here with no idea which way is up or down, and then stuff begins to make sense. You build little things on your own, and you might actually start to feel like you're actually pretty good at this. Have you heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? This is where you think you're better than you are because you don't yet realize how much you don't know. This was me first semester of uni. I built a command line-based tourist site simulation in Java and thought I was the next John Carmack. But quickly, you'll start descending from this little peak of ignorant bliss. You'll, get involved in a real project, perhaps take your first job, meet some seniors, and realize that you mightn't be as good as you thought you were. And from this point on, the more you learn, the more you realize you need to learn. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So you're no longer ignorant, and it's no longer bliss, and it's very easy to get caught in a trap of doubting your own ability and of feeling like you're just sort of constantly struggling on this never-ending treadmill of just trying to learn all the things. So I've been doing software almost 10 years, and I've never had what I would call a normal job. I've worked for my own dad, I've worked as a freelancer, and I've worked as the only full-time developer at BBL Digital, a small agency where I'm a part owner. And because of that, because I hadn't worked a sort of normal job, I felt like I've had no point of reference for judging my ability. And I've been constantly worried that I might be doing everything wrong without anyone else sort of there to make me realize it, and that it was only a matter of time before someone else figured this out. Each time I'd start a more challenging job, I'd think, well, this will be the one where I just totally screw up and everyone realizes that I've basically just fluked it so far. Meanwhile, I also believe that surely all the stuff that all other programmers were doing was far more complex than anything that I was doing. Turns out what I was experiencing was a pretty common thing, and it's called imposter syndrome. When I first kind of diagnosed myself with this, I went to my wife and I said, "Hey Jess, have you ever heard of imposter syndrome?" "No." "Well, it's where you don't internalize your own accomplishments despite external evidence for them. So you'll constantly doubt yourself and dismiss your successes as luck or fluke, even though other people think you're more than competent. And it makes you feel like sooner or later someone will kind of catch you out for being an imposter, for posing as someone who's better than you actually are." And Jess says, "Oh, you mean like you?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I think." I read a great blog post by Alicia Liu that presents a perfect visualization of imposter syndrome, so I'll shamelessly copy it here. This is imposter syndrome. The small circle is what you think you know. The larger one, what you think everyone else knows. This is closer to reality. You know some stuff, another person knows some stuff. Some it overlaps, some doesn't. But I've thought a lot about how this first situation comes about. And I think it goes something like this. You start sort of building up a picture in your head of the stuff other people know and do. So, you know, Bobby knows Angular, Peggy Sue, Ember, Fred knows Chef and can actually manage Linux servers, Jane maintains this gem, Sam contributes to that one, Node, JRuby, Rubinius, Capistrano, Rake, Rack, RSpec, Rust, Scalar, Haskell, development management, open source, conference talks, mentoring, community organizing, blogging, agile, all the things. And you build up a somewhat realistic bubble in your head of the stuff people collectively know and do. But then you make two small mistakes. Number one, you blur the edges. You tend to assume that most people know most of this stuff. So that means you overestimate the horizontal breadth of everyone's knowledge. And number two, you tend to assume that if someone mentions something, they're probably an expert at it. So you tend to overestimate the vertical depth of everyone's knowledge. To give you an embarrassing example, you know, I once saw a tweet that said, "Stop DDoSing GitHub." And I thought, oh, geez, I'll bet this guy knows everything about DDoS attacks. You know, he's probably dealt with them at work and knows how to mitigate them and everything. And I guess most devs know that stuff, but not me. Sounds crazy, but that's just the genuine thought process of a serial self-doubter. So from this one little tweet, I've assumed that everyone is an expert on the topic. And when you think like this, all of a sudden you suck. All of a sudden, you know nothing about anything, or at least so you think. This is imposter syndrome, and it's common. Estimates vary, but some studies suggest as many as 70% of people will experience this at some point. The smallest estimate I found put it at 40%, which is still huge. Needless to say, if you haven't experienced this yourself, I can almost guarantee some of your friends have. It was originally described in 1978 by two researchers at Georgia State University in the US, based on their work with groups of high-achieving women. Given the patriarchy we live in, it's unfortunately probably not surprising that imposter syndrome is particularly common among women and also among minorities. But what may surprise you is it's particularly common amongst high achievers. But it actually makes sense. Those who settle for mediocrity are less likely to be worried about being worse than people think they are. Those who set the bar high, on the other hand, are also more likely to feel like they're falling short of where they should be. I was shocked to find out just how many highly respected and highly accomplished figures in the tech industry had experienced this. People like Facebook CTO Sheryl Sandberg, Rand Fishkin from SEO Moz. Avdi Grimm recently said that he feels like an imposter because he ships videos about code, not actual code features. The rest of us thought he was awesome for the exact same reason. Guys like DHH. No, not really. I'm pretty sure DHH doesn't have it. But seniors and leaders aren't by any means immune to this. Nor are intermediates, nor are juniors, and apparently nor am I. Now, I wanted to talk about why it's particularly common in tech, but didn't have time, so it is. You can ask me about that later. So you know what imposter syndrome is, but why should you care about this? Even if you don't have it, why should you try to stop other people feeling this way? Well, number one, happiness. It's kind of the point of life, and feeling confident is a lot more fun than its counterpart. Number two, both confidence and doubt can be self-fulfilling prophecies. Doubters love their own comfort zone and may avoid taking on opportunities and challenges to further their own professional development. And you don't want that happening to yourself, to your friends, or to your employees. Number 3, it hurts recruiters and those hiring too. In an industry hungry for talent, good candidates can be missed if they underestimate their own ability. I remember this one job interview where my main agenda was to make sure, they knew that I really wasn't that good. True story. I haven't actually spoken to Matt or Steve about it, but I'm pretty sure that's a bad interview strategy. I might have missed an opportunity, but they did too. They were hiring because they were hurting. And looking back, I would have been fine for the role. So how did I come to realize that, I might have this imposter syndrome thing? And how did I, to some extent, overcome it? Well, over time, there were a bunch of little experiences which made me suspect 2 things. Number 1, I might not be as bad as I thought. And number 2, others might doubt themselves too. For example, Lachlan Hardy's Twitter bio used to say, "You're the only one who thinks you're not good enough." And I thought, well, surely he's not talking directly to me. Another time, Michael Linzar indicated he was impressed with a project of mine, and my train of thought went something like this. Was he just impressed? I think he was. Silly Michael. He's overestimated how complex it was. But he's sort of one of the best Ruby devs in Australia. You wouldn't think he would do that. Did I mislead him? Did I make it sound harder than it actually was? So you can see that the doubt is still there, but it's kind of doubting itself. And many little experiences like that, bit by bit, made a small difference. But then I had an epiphany. Sorry, hang on. Yeah, that one's it. I had an epiphany. So once on Stack Overflow, I was reading a longish answer, and as was common for me, I was sort of thinking, damn, this person actually, knows what they're talking about. Wish I could be like that, but guess I never will be. And I got to the end, and it was written by me. Yeah, I wrote it a year ago. And that sort of hit me between the eyeballs as hard evidence that the standard that I was using to judge others was different to the standard I was using to judge myself. And that's sort of what led to me really looking into this whole self-doubt thing and realizing that, I might even have imposter syndrome. And since then, I've thought and read about it a lot and really sort of tried to make a conscious effort to overcome it. So let's fix it. I'm going to share 6 things that I've found useful. If you've got imposter syndrome, every single one will go against your natural inclination. Tough luck, you've got to try it anyway. And quick disclaimer, I'm no psychologist or expert. I'm just someone who doubts themselves a bit less than they used to. And here's what helped me. Number 1, talk about it. Speak to others who've experienced it. Or if you're not confident doing that, Google it and read about the experience of others. When I first sort of realized that, in fact, lots of people experience self-doubt, it was like sunshine to my heart. It was such a relief. Finding out that you're not the only one is the single biggest step to overcoming it. Number 2, teach. Teaching is amazing and it's a whole other talk in itself, but specifically for doubters, it's great because it inadvertently shifts the focus from what you don't know to what you do know. And what you do know may well surprise you. A funny sort of side effect of my own imposter syndrome was that I actually thought teaching would be easy. I really thought, it's not going to take me long to transfer this little thimble full of knowledge that I have in my head over to someone else. It turns out that wasn't the case, and teaching made me realize that I'd actually accumulated more knowledge than I thought. Number 3, opine. Have opinions. You'll be terrified of this, and you'll feel like you're not qualified to have an opinion on anything. You're wrong. Make a conscious decision to just back your own intuition and just have an opinion. You might change it later, and that's fine. You might even debate someone and lose. That's fine too. It won't ruin your career. You will learn more and gain more confidence by taking a stand than you ever will by sort of sitting on the sidelines and asking everyone else, well, what should I think? Number 4, don't undervalue your soft skills. In our industry, it can be easy to evaluate yourself and others based solely on technical knowledge, but that's not nearly all that's important. I remember once being told by a project manager that they preferred working with me over someone else who did undoubtedly have more technical knowledge. And I remember sort of trying to explain to them that they were wrong. You know, they shouldn't prefer working with me. But, you know, they insisted, you know, no, you do a thorough job, you don't whinge about little changes, and, you know, you make sure you've tested stuff before you hand it back. So they valued soft skills, things like conscientiousness, clear communication, and, you know, not being a jerk, just as much as technical knowledge. Number 5, work with people who think you're better than you do. That'll be everyone. So just work with others. Honestly, I don't think that freelancing is a good choice for a self-doubter. All of the most challenging projects that I've taken on in the past few years and the things that I've learned the most from are all things that I would have turned down as a freelancer due to lack of confidence. But luckily, my work colleagues had more confidence in me than I had in myself and ensured that my own doubt didn't become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Number 6, and this one's important, be conscious of work-life balance. If you're constantly worried that you're not as good as you should be, you will likely start overworking to compensate. So you'll sort of work right up till dinner, and then you'll work after dinner till bed, and then you'll sort of start going to bed later and later, and then you'll start getting a bit done on weekends too, and when you're not working, you'll make sure that, you know, you're watching tutorials or reading blog posts, and your sort of drive to become the developer that you think you should be can start to consume your whole life. Trust me, don't do this. It doesn't help. It will make you hate your work and your life. Becoming a better developer is great, but it's not the solution to imposter syndrome, because imposter syndrome is not a lack of ability. Imposter syndrome is an incorrect judgment of ability. So be conscious of balance and set hard limits if you need to. For example, I don't know, Thursday to Sunday, no computer after 8 p.m. or, you know, whatever works for you, but just make sure that the balance is there. So those 6 tips are by no means exhaustive, but they're what we've got time for now. So at this point, you might be wondering, am I cured? Am I sort of over it? I'm sorry to give an unsatisfying response, but the answer is, meh, sort of, I don't know, 50, 60%. I still have like relapses, if you want to call them that, but it's ongoing, but generally an upward trend, and I'm definitely happier for it. I feel like imposter syndrome is kind of like this ongoing battle between the rational and the emotional sides of your mind, and as you make a conscious decision to overcome it, the rational side will get better at A, sort of staging an intervention earlier when self-doubt looms, and B, sort of winning the arguments that your emotional mind puts forth. So, if any of the experiences that I've shared resonate with you, if you're now thinking, well, maybe I'm not as bad as I thought, congratulations, you've taken a massive first step. I want you right now to make a commitment to do something about it. It won't be easy or quick. It'll take self-discipline. It'll be gradual, and you'll have downs as well as ups. It'll take an ongoing, conscious effort. But you absolutely can do it, and it absolutely is worth it. You'll be a happier developer and a happier person. Thank you.